My name is Lauren Mitchell. I'm 34 years old, and tomorrow was supposed to be my housewarming party. Instead, I came home today to find my little sister Brittany directing movers in my living room, rearranging my furniture like it was a stage she was building for her wedding. A guy in cargo shorts was rolling up the area rug I spent 2 paychecks on. Another was moving my bookshelves. I just stood there in the doorway, holding a grocery bag and a bottle of chilled Prosecco, blinking, like maybe if I waited long enough, this scene would unwrite itself. "Oh, good you're home," Brittany chirped. "We just need to move the console table and then check lighting near the deck for golden hour shots." I didn't move. I didn't even set down the bag. From the kitchen, our mother appeared with a clipboard and a pen tucked into her bun. "Sweetheart, you're early. Brittany needs to finalize the floor plan with Brooke. Can you be out by Friday? The tent setup starts Saturday morning." Before I can continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your city and local time in the comments. I'm always curious where and when you're listening. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The truth is, my family has always looked good from the outside. The kind of Southern family that sends holiday cards with coordinated outfits and fake fireplace backdrops. But perfection was a costume we wore for outsiders. Behind closed doors, it was a different story, one where I was the steady one, the practical one, the invisible one. And now, my reward for 6 years of saving 15 months of planning and 14-hour workdays was to be evicted from my own home. I looked around the room. My hand-drafted blueprints were still in the basket by the fireplace. The window bench I'd sanded myself was covered in garment bags. "Brittany," I said slowly, "what are you doing?" She blinked. "Finalizing the ceremony layout. I mean, in my house?" Her smile twitched. "Dad said it was being gifted to Ethan and me as our wedding present." I felt the floor drop. The Prosecco bottle slipped from the paper bag and hit the hardwood with a thud. I barely noticed. My hands were shaking too hard to hold it. "You're not serious," I said. "You can't be serious." Behind me, someone carried a crate labeled reception decor through the front door. "Lauren," my mom said, her voice low, like she was trying to soothe a skittish dog. "This is a family asset. We've all contributed. It only makes sense that it benefits everyone. Brittany and Ethan need a home, and you." I snapped. "You're a single woman with a demanding career. Maybe it's time to simplify." Simplify. As if all I'd done here, every nail, every drawing, every weekend site visit, was some complicated phase I needed to shed. I turned, walked out the front door, got in my car, and sat in the driveway for 45 minutes. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stared at my house, the one I built, and watched my sister claim it with a floral arch and folding chairs. Lake Jacassi was supposed to be my sanctuary. The place I'd dreamed about during late nights, drafting permit packages for other people's homes. The escape I built piece by piece, pixel by pixel, in KD software and on paper napkins. I found the land 3 years ago, scrolling listings on a Sunday morning, with Daniel beside me, both of us in pajamas, drinking coffee that had gone lukewarm hours earlier. 2.5 acres, lakefront, quiet, the kind of place where time didn't press on you. I knew it before I ever set foot on the soil that this would be where I'd build the rest of my life. I didn't have a trust fund or family money to fall back on. Just a decade of 60-hour weeks and enough self-discipline to make a monk weep. While my friends bought starter homes or booked bachelorette trips to Cabo, I packed rice and vegetables into Tupperware and drove a 12-year-old Prius that rattled when it idled. Every spare dollar went into the dream fund. I even opened a separate savings account and named it Lauren's House or Bust. When the land went up for sale, I pounced. Closed within 30 days. Paid for the first round of soil tests in cash. Sketched early concepts in the margins of my meeting notes. The construction loan only covered part of it. I needed $60,000 more to meet a payment deadline before the next draw, and one of my investments hadn't matured yet. That's when Dad offered the loan. I should have known. He made me sign an agreement like I was a stranger. I didn't even blink. I signed it and repaid him in full 4 months later with interest. He texted me, "You didn't need to pay interest, but thanks." Looks sharp. Sharp. As in professional. As in emotionally cold, but fiscally sound. That's how he communicates approval. That loan was the only thing they ever contributed. No paint, no nails, no Saturday afternoons, and yet suddenly it was enough to claim the whole thing as theirs. I spent 15 months in boots on site nearly every day. I caught the framing crew using the wrong joists and reworked a busted HVAC line myself with a flashlight in my teeth. There's blood on the deckboard's mine. I sliced my hand open, laying cedar planks for the bench outside the front door. But Brittany, she showed up once, wore white heels in a gravel pit, and complained about the lack of cell service. "Your kitchen island is too big," she said, sipping a latte. "And that backsplash looks like it belongs in a dentist's office." I laughed it off at the time. I shouldn't have. That was the first sign. Now, as I sat in my car, watching her wedding planner set up in my driveway, I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a heist with floral arrangements. And the worst part, my parents were in on it. I pressed my forehead to the steering wheel and tried to breathe. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a little voice whispered, "They don't see it as theft because they don't see you as the rightful owner. They see you as the safe bet, the one who can always rebuild." I didn't know it yet, but that moment in the car, paralyzed, furious, betrayed, would be the last time I ever let them define what I deserved. Brittany was always the golden daughter, the baby, the sparkly one. While I drew floor plans on graph paper and begged for more time on the home computer, she was twirling in pageant dresses and getting applause just for existing. It's not that I hated her, I didn't. She was magnetic and I was quiet. She danced, I read. She cried and the world bent to comfort her. I studied architecture under a flashlight when the power went out, because I didn't want to bother anyone. When she turned 16, she got a white Mini Cooper with a red bow. I was gifted a used Camry and a firm reminder to appreciate practicality. In college, they paid her tuition and gave her a housing stipend so she could focus on being a student. I waited tables, cleaned apartments, and did freelance AutoCAD jobs at night. When I graduated, Dad said, "Time to start pulling your weight." And I did, I always have. So of course, when Brittany got engaged to Ethan, a minor league ballplayer with one good knee and a great smile, they threw a brunch, made a wedding Pinterest board, and promised her a venue worthy of her big day. Only apparently that venue was my house. My phone buzzed as I sat in the driveway, staring through the windshield, like I was watching someone else's life unravel. It was Sam, my best friend, since freshman year at Clemson. "Sam just saw Brittany's Insta. Is she setting up at your place?" She'd posted a story of the backyard. My backyard. The caption read, "Scouting the perfect ceremony spot with all Brook. Events. Lakeview Love." I got out of the car and walked back to the house, my hands cold, even though the South Carolina heat clung to my skin. I pushed open the front door. The smell of gardenias, my housewarming flowers, hit me like a slap. Brittany turned her hair in hot rollers, a glass of Prosecco in hand. "Hey, sis. Don't worry, we'll put everything back after the big day." I blinked. "What big day?" She giggled. "The wedding Ethan and I finally picked the date. It's happening here in May. Isn't that amazing?" "Who told you that was okay?" I asked. Dad said it was all worked out. "You weren't using the house for anything big, right?" "Brittany," I said, my voice trembling with effort to stay level. "This is my house, not a community center, not a backup wedding venue. It's mine." She pouted. "Why are you being like this? It's not like you have kids or a husband. You don't need all this space." The audacity rolled off her in waves. Like my accomplishments didn't count, because I hadn't accessorized them with a man and a baby registry. "You know what I need," I said, clenching my fists. "Respect. A door that locks. A family that doesn't see me as a donor organ." Her face darkened. "God, you're so selfish." "Selfish?" "For wanting to live in the house I built from dirt and concrete and sleepless nights." I stepped toward her. "You can either get out of my house now, or I will start pulling out contracts and calling lawyers. Your choice." That got her attention. She set her glass down. "Fine. But you'll regret this." What she didn't know, I'd been regretting saying yes to that loan from Dad since the moment he handed me the check. Brittany didn't leave that day. Not entirely. She gathered her things, told the vendors to pause setup instead of cancel it, and promised to clear things up with Dad. I didn't argue. I couldn't. I just stood in my kitchen, and stared at the island where she'd perched like it belonged to her. The same island I'd saved for over 2 years to afford. Maple butcher block with a waterfall edge sealed with my own hands. She'd traced it with her acrylic nails, like she was deciding whether to keep it or tear it out. It's too wide for a buffet, she'd told her planner. But it could work for a champagne station if we rearranged things. I remember the first time I sketched the design. It was on the back of a cocktail napkin in Asheville, sitting in the corner of a cafe while waiting for a client meeting. I'd been dreaming about a space that was both functional and warm. A space that felt like a hug after a hard day. Now it felt like a contested asset in a family war. The next morning, Mom texted. Mom, Brittany was very upset. Can we all talk over dinner, just family? Just family! That phrase landed differently now. I walked through the house and saw ghosts. Brittany measuring the guest bedroom for her bridal party. Brooke taking photos of the yard for tent layout. My father muttering something about legacy space as he eyed the cedar beams in the great room. And in the master bedroom, my sanctuary, Brittany had stood with her planner and said, "This is where we'll do makeup and prep. The light here is perfect." She'd called it the bridal suite. I sat on the edge of my bed and tried not to scream. The floor under me, the walls around me, these were mine. But they'd been walked through, claimed redrawn, like a territory under siege. That afternoon, Daniel showed up with lunch. He took one look at me and wordlessly handed over a sandwich. We ate on the deck in silence. The lake shimmered indifferent. "I think they're trying to gaslight me," I said finally. "Like actually convince me that I agreed to this. Or that I owe it to her." He nodded slowly. "You don't. But what if I did say something vague once like, maybe you could use it for an event someday? What if I opened the door without knowing it?" "Lauren," he said, setting down his drink. "You didn't open a door." They broke in. "This isn't a misunderstanding. This is entitlement with a clipboard." I laughed, then cried, then both. I needed backup. Real backup, I texted Sam. "Me, I think I need to lawyer up. And also drink." She replied instantly. "Sam, I'm bringing tequila and a Google Drive folder. Let's go." That night, the three of us sat in my office, surrounded by blueprints, receipts, and bank statements. I pulled out the file from the loan dated signed repaid. I even had Dad's text confirming it. "Got it. You didn't need to pay me back, but okay. Sharp." Daniel looked up. "You know what this is, right? This is a full paper trail. This house isn't up for debate. It's not family property. It's yours." And for the first time since walking in on the wedding prep chaos, I believed it. Now I just had to make them believe it too. 2 days later, I woke up to a text from my father. "Dad, let's all be reasonable. The house is a shared asset. We'll talk tonight, 7 p.m. Bring your paperwork if you want." He made it sound like I was showing up to a budget meeting, not defending my sanity. Sam insisted on coming with me. "They're going to try to spin this, and you need a witness. Or at least someone to stop you from throwing salad forks." We arrived at their house just before 7. The same brick colonial I grew up in. It hadn't changed a bit. Except now, it felt like enemy territory. Brittany was already there, seated like a queen in her usual spot, at the head of the couch, one perfectly manicured hand resting on the armrest. Ethan sat next to her, silent, trying to make himself small. Dad stood when we entered, but didn't offer a hug. "Let's get to it," he said, motioning toward the dining room table. Mom brought out coffee. No one drank it. "I just want us to talk like adults," Dad said. "No lawyers, no threats, just family." I laid the folder on the table with a calm I didn't feel. "Then let's start with the facts. The land purchase agreement signed solely by me. The construction contract my name only. Invoices, bank transfers, and every email to the builder, all mine. The loan A, one-time $60,000 check during the framing phase. Paid back in full, with a paper trail signed receipt and a text to match." I slid the paper across the table. "This is your signature, right?" Dad didn't look down. "Lauren, you're missing the point." "No," I said. "I think I'm finally seeing it." "We had an understanding," he said. "I helped you. That house was always meant to be part of the family, a shared space. I didn't have an understanding. I had a signed contract and a father who took repayment like a bank. You don't get to rewrite that just because Brittany needs a venue." Mom tried the soft route. "Sweetheart, no one is trying to take it away from you. We just thought you'd want to be generous. She's starting a new life. Then she can start it somewhere else. Like every adult who doesn't steal homes." Brittany rolled her eyes. "God, Lauren, you always do this. Always playing the martyr." Sam stiffened beside me, but I held up a hand. "Funny," I said, "because I found something interesting on your phone last week." Brittany's eyes flickered. I saw the texts, the ones between you and Mom. Photos of my house with little notes, change backsplash, move office furniture, paint guest room. You had plans, Brittany. This wasn't wishful thinking. This was a hostile takeover. Mom turned pale. You went through her phone. She left it on the counter. It lit up. I tapped. What I found was betrayal in Canva mood boards. Dad stood abruptly. Enough, we're not doing this. No, I said, rising to meet his eye. We're not. Because it's done. This house belongs to me. I have the paperwork. I have the contractor's affidavit. I have the deed. And if any of you set foot on my property again without permission, I will file for trespassing. The room went quiet. Ethan finally spoke. I didn't know, Lauren. I really didn't. I thought we were just using your house for the wedding. I had no idea there were plans to take it from you. I nodded once. Thanks. That's more honesty than I've gotten from my own parents. Brittany stood slowly. You'll regret this. I smiled. I already regret not changing the locks sooner. I changed the locks that night. Not metaphorically, literally. Daniel brought over his drill, and I stood beside him on the porch while he swapped out every cylinder on every door. The old keys, I tossed them into the lake. A week before, I would have felt guilty. But now I felt something different. Something sharp and necessary clarity. They weren't going to stop. They were going to reframe reword guilt trip and steamroll until I either gave in or broke down. So I beat them to the punch. I took the truth, their carefully spun version of family planning, and called it what it was: theft. Emotional theft. Spatial theft. The kind of theft that starts with small comments. Do you really need this much space? And ends with wedding caterers in your kitchen. The next morning, I sent one message in our family group chat. Me. I've consulted my attorney. This is no longer a discussion. The house is not available for use or transfer. Any future visits must be cleared in advance. Any attempt to interfere with my property will be considered trespassing. Please respect this boundary. I muted the thread after that. Then I went to the lake. I sat on the bench I'd built with my own hands, cedar slats smooth beneath me. The water was glassy, still holding the sky like a mirror. I listened to the wind move through the trees, and for the first time in days, I felt rooted. Until my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. Lauren Mitchell, the voice asked. Yes. This is Mike Harper from Harper & Sons Construction. Daniel mentioned you might need something from me. My spine straightened. Yes, sir. I'm dealing with some property confusion. I was hoping you could provide a written statement verifying who contracted the build, who made decisions, who paid. No problem, he said. I remember every job. You were on site more than my crew. You even fixed that insulation hiccup we had near the water heater. I'll send a notarized affidavit by end of day. That was the thing. People saw, people remembered. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I was the only one who'd been showing up from the start. Later that day, I sat in my office with the documents spread across the desk like armor. Construction timelines, payment logs, blueprints with my initials. Mike's affidavit arrived just after dinner, short, formal, and devastatingly clear. This home was designed, managed, and financed entirely by Lauren Mitchell. No contributions or direction were made by any other party, with the sole exception of a loan from Richard Mitchell, repaid in full on May 3rd. I printed it, I framed it, I hung it next to the front door, just in case anyone needed a reminder. That night, Sam and Daniel came over. We opened wine-ordered pizza and sat on the deck under string lights I'd installed myself. This, Sam said, raising her glass, is yours. And no one gets to rewrite that. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his voice quiet but firm. You didn't just build a house, Lauren. You built a boundary, and you held it. I looked around at the structure I'd designed, at the view I'd chosen, at the people who stayed when the walls shook. And I whispered more to myself than anyone else. Let them come for the facade. I know what the foundation's made of. The next morning, I woke up at 4 to 12 a.m., drenched in sweat, heart racing. I'd had a dream that I walked into my house and everything was gone. Not stolen, just erased. Like I had never existed inside these walls. I sat up in bed shaking. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about identity. about how easy it is to feel like the ground you stand on isn't real when the people who raised you say it never belong to you. By sunrise, I was spiraling. I paced the living room, barefoot, the hardwood cool under my feet, touching objects like they were evidence in a case I was still trying to win. Throw pillows I sewed by hand, a side table from a salvage yard I refinished myself. Even the imperfect brushstrokes on the window trim told the story of me, of ownership, of presence. And still it felt like someone might come and strip it all away. I ended up on the kitchen floor clutching the drawer handle like it was a lifeline. Tears came fast and hard, ugly and unstoppable. My breath hitched until I couldn't pull air in. My chest burned. I didn't call Sam. I didn't call Daniel. I didn't even move. But somehow by grace or intuition, they showed up anyway. Daniel let himself in, carrying bagels. Sam followed 10 minutes later with coffee. They found me curled up near the pantry, still in yesterday's shirt. "Hey," Sam said softly, crouching beside me. "You're safe. It's okay. We're here." I tried to answer, but nothing came out. I just shook my head and pointed toward the stack of documents on the counter. Lauren, Daniel said, sitting on the floor beside me. "Listen to me. You've already won. They can't take it. Not the house. Not the history. Not your story." I finally spoke, voice raw. "But they tried." "Yeah," Sam said, brushing hair out of my face. "And they failed." The panic slowly began to thaw. We sat there on the tile floor like it was a sacred space. 3 people in soft clothes, surrounded by toast crumbs, legal folders, and the faint scent of lemon cleaner. Sam stood and pulled a Post-it from the fridge. On it, she wrote in thick marker, "It's not generosity if it's theft." She stuck it above the stove. I left it there for months. Later, Daniel made tea, while I sat outside on the deck, wrapped in a blanket. The lake was calm, a pale blue mirror reflecting the sky. That view, so still, so patient, reminded me why I built here in the first place. This land didn't ask anything of me, except that I show up honestly. That day, something shifted inside me. I realized that proof isn't just paperwork. It's presence. It's the friends who show up unasked. It's the contractor who remembers your name. It's the neighbor who saw you hammering siding at dusk. And it's the person you become when you finally stop shrinking for people who pretend they love you, but only honor what you can give. That afternoon, I called my lawyer, Monica Trent. "I want a cease and desist drafted," I told her. "And I want to plan a second housewarming." She didn't ask why. She just said, "On it." Because the next chapter wouldn't be about defense. It would be about reclaiming joy. The second housewarming party was scheduled for Saturday. Invitations went out by text, and word-of-mouth casual lakeside close friends only. But before I could light candles or arrange flowers, my parents returned with a mission. It was Thursday morning when they showed up unannounced. I was in sweatpants, hair in a claw clip, arranging wildflowers in mason jars, when I heard tires on gravel. Through the window, I saw Dad's truck. Then Mom's car right behind. They both got out, faces composed, practiced like people rehearsing a scene they intended to win. I stepped outside, arms crossed. "Did you forget what I said about trespassing?" "Lauren, please," Mom said, hands raised. "We need to talk, just us. No lawyers." "You said that last time," I replied, and then tried to gaslight me into surrendering my home. "We brought coffee," she added weakly. "I brought documentation," I said, motioning toward the stack of papers now permanently stationed on my console table. They followed me inside, my house, my rules. We sat at the kitchen island. Yes, that island, and Dad slid a folder across the counter. "We had our lawyer draw up a shared ownership transfer," he said. "In case you're willing to reconsider." I stared at the folder, then up at him. "You're doubling down." "It's not about property," Mom insisted. "It's about family, legacy, stability." "For Brittany," I corrected. "Not for me." Dad folded his arms. "You have a career, Lauren. You'll build again. She's starting from scratch. She's starting with a fiancé, a platform with 100K followers, and 2 parents who'll bankrupt themselves to keep her smiling." I snapped. "You're right. She's starting from something. But this house, this is mine." He stood up abruptly, pacing. "You think you're so righteous. But we gave you life. We made sacrifices, too. I repaid the only loan you ever gave me. I put myself through school. I worked every job, filled every gap. And now you're telling me the reward for my independence is expropriation." Mom flinched. Dad didn't blink. "I just don't want to lose my daughter over a house," she said softly. You didn't lose me over a house, I said. You lost me when you lied about it. When you planned with Brittany behind my back. When you prioritized her wedding fantasy over my reality. Dad shook his head. You're making this bigger than it is. No, I said, voice low but sharp. You're trying to make something enormous seem small. You're trying to call betrayal a misunderstanding. But it's not. It's theft. With documents. With group chats. With a binder labeled Mitchell Wedding at Lauren's house. Their silence was its own confession. Here's what's going to happen, I said, sliding the folder back across the counter. You're going to take this nonsense home. You're going to delete whatever shared deed idea you think is legal. And you're going to stop trying to leverage guilt for access. Dad's face hardened. If that's your final word? It is, I said. He stood. Then we're done. Maybe for now, I said, but that's up to you. Mom lingered a moment longer, eyes glassy. You used to be so sweet. I used to be quiet, I corrected. Not the same thing. They left without slamming the door. That was something, I guess. As I stood alone in the kitchen, I ran my hand over the island's edge. Still cool, still smooth, still mine. And for the first time, I believed that nothing they did could change that. It was the following Monday when Brittany showed up alone, unannounced, and without lashes or gloss. She looked tired, human, like someone who hadn't slept in a few nights. I was pruning the rosemary planter by the side deck when I heard the familiar click of her heels. I looked up. She wasn't wearing heels, just worn Converse and a hoodie that didn't belong to her. I'm not here to fight, she said. Can we talk? I hesitated, then nodded toward the porch chairs. She sat down awkwardly, folding her hands in her lap, like she didn't know where to put them. I read the messages I said flatly before she could speak. All of them. You were measuring rooms for a nursery, Brittany. She winced. I know how that looked. It looked like you planned to erase me. She picked at her thumbnail eyes, locked on a knot in the wooden deck. I was jealous. I blinked. Of what? Of everything she whispered. Of how clear you are. Of how stable you are. You know what you want. You build things. You finish things. You didn't need anyone. I scoffed. You really think I didn't need anyone? You never asked for help. You just did everything on your own. Because when I asked, I didn't get it, I snapped. Because while you got tuition checks and moving vans, I got lectures about independence. You were allowed to lean. I had to carry. She went quiet again. When Dad offered to help with the house, she said slowly, he told me it was his investment too. That he'd made sure of that. That. He could give it to me and Ethan. So you believed him? She nodded. I wanted to. I sat back in my chair, trying to swallow the burn in my throat. You didn't just want the house, I said. You wanted what it represented. Yes, she whispered. I wanted to feel like I'd made something too. You can, I said, but not by stealing mine. She looked up, eyes glassy. I'm sorry, I didn't realize how deep this went for you. This house is the first thing I ever gave myself permission to want, I said. Not something for a client, not something for a job, something just for me. And when you walked in like it was a backdrop for your bridal shower, it felt like you were saying none of that mattered. Brittany nodded slowly. I thought maybe, if I had it, I'd feel like you, like I was enough. My stomach twisted. You don't need a lake house to be enough, I said. You need to stop believing that taking from others makes you whole. We sat in silence for a while. The wind shifted. A loon called out from somewhere near the dock. I found a venue, she said finally. A barn just outside Greenville. It's not as curated as this, but it's ours. Ethan loves it. I do too. I nodded. Good. She stood. If you're willing, I'd still like your help designing our home. When we find one. I paused. You're asking this time, I said. She gave a small smile. Yeah, I am. Then yes, I replied. As long as you remember, you don't get to keep what isn't offered. 6 months later, we had dinner here, my parents, Brittany, Ethan, Daniel, Sam, and me. It was awkward at first. The kind of careful, eggshell-laden evening that comes after a storm nobody fully admits happened. But there was laughter, too. Real laughter. Mom complimented the roast chicken. Dad stayed quiet, which in our family meant he wasn't picking a fight. Brittany brought pie she made herself store-bought crust, but homemade filling. That was something. After dinner, Brittany and I sat on the deck, staring out at the lake as twilight softened everything. This place really is beautiful, she said, And so completely you. I smiled. It's funny. I spent so long building the physical structure that I didn't realize the emotional one was just as important. She glanced at me. Boundaries, you mean? I nodded. This house has a foundation of concrete and steel, but the part that keeps it mine, that's boundaries. She sipped her wine. I'm learning, slowly. And I'm learning that setting limits doesn't mean I'm cold or ungrateful. It means I respect myself enough to draw a line and hold it. A week after our deck conversation, she sent me a photo of her new house. A fixer-upper, outside Traveler's Rest. 2 bedrooms, a lot of potential. Brittany, can I cash in that design consult? I smiled at the screen for a long time. Daniel and I spent that Sunday in the woodshop building them a housewarming bench. It wasn't forgiveness in a plank, but it was piece measured and cut to size. As for my parents, it's a work in progress. We started family therapy 3 months ago. At first, Dad didn't say a word. Then one session, he blurted, I never thought you'd hold your ground. I underestimated you. It wasn't an apology, but it was a beginning. And beginnings matter. Sometimes I still walk around the house touching surfaces. Not because I'm scared of losing them anymore, but because I remember what it cost to earn them. The cedar planks, the handmade shelves, the blueprint folded 12 times in my nightstand drawer. They're more than materials. They're proof. Proof that I can protect what's mine. Proof that being the strong one doesn't mean being the sacrificial one. Proof that I don't need to shrink just because someone else wants to expand. The lake doesn't ask me to be anything. It doesn't demand weddings or grand gestures. It just reflects back who I am, flawed, scarred, whole. Last week, I stood in my office flipping through renderings for a new project when I caught a glimpse of the post-it Sam wrote months ago. It's not generosity if it's theft. It still makes me smile. And right beneath it, I've added a new note. The boundary isn't the wall. It's the promise I keep to myself. That's what this house is now. Not just a home, but a monument to that promise. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with me. This wasn't just a story about a house. It was a story about boundaries, the ones we draw on floor plans, and the ones we finally learn to draw around our hearts. Have you ever had to defend something important to you, from the people closest to you? When did you finally say, no more? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story. If this resonated with you, please like the video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe. Not because I said so, but because you believe in stories that remind us we're allowed to take up space. Because sometimes the most important foundation we build is self-respect.